There's this smoke that came out of the back of Dode's head, and I was like, "Oh, that is so cool!" But it was actually a mistake. It was just compressed air from the device to shoot out the blood. So the blood shot out, and then the air shot out a half a second later.
I thought it was so cool though.
It was cool. Who cares that it's a
I
mistake? It
thought
was
it
so
was so
fucking
cool.
cool.
I finally
Watched.
I finally
Watched. I
finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally
Watched.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched Brick.
So, Brick is one of those movies that I don't think it's the type of movie that can't happen anymore, really. Which is like I felt like I kind of discovered this on my own. I think you can do that now with like Netflix, but
I
they're
think you
usually
can do that most certainly, especially with Netflix. I think it's easier to do that now with movies than it was before.
You see, when you interrupt me, though, I don't get to finish my point. So then you
Uh-huh.
feel like superior for 30 seconds.
That was a stupid point.
It wasn't because I wasn't done. But like, you feel like you kind of earn it by like, oh, you see like this random thing about a movie. Maybe it's like a short trailer or something. You find it on the internet, a blog post. I mean, speaking of Rian Johnson, who directed this, one of his next movies, Looper, I heard a blurb about that movie, just the thought of what it was going to be like 3 years before he made it, and then just like was waiting for it for that long. But Brick was a movie that like I don't know, heard about or saw the DVD and just bought it and then brought it home and then was rewarded with what I thought was a pretty amazing movie. And then today, like, I think it really holds up. When you do that now, you just discover a movie on Netflix that no one's heard of. Like, one, trying to get anyone to watch that movie, they're just like, nah, not really. Probably not going to do that. And then two, it's just like you watch it and then it's gone. Like it doesn't have the same like staying power with you anymore.
I guess I can see that. Although back in what was it, like 2015? No, earlier. 2013, 2012, 2013. I went on a whole shtick of like independent movies that Netflix would recommend one after the other. And I found like that's how I found Lars and the Real Girl. That's how I found a lot of like Jason Segel movies and kind of like some indie Paul Rudd movies.
Yeah,
And I
brother.
enjoy those quite a bit. And I now it's like Lars and the Real Girl is like, I feel like it was like an indie underground thing that it hit mainstream. Everyone knows about it nowadays.
Find it on Netflix. You're like, oh well, how many people in America have Netflix and then globally have Netflix? You're like, I'm not. This isn't like a discovery, right?
I feel like a discovery to a young college Alon.
I don't know. I think it says more
But
about you than
okay,
me.
but you know, like Ryan Gosling got huge, super famous and big, and I think that movie came more into light as in like Ryan Johnson became super huge, famous and big, especially since The Last Jedi. I think Looper, like you mentioned, is the one that put him probably on the map. And then of course, I think he became super mainstream to the point where like your mother and grandmother know him through the Knives Out series, right?
Right.
And so it it's one of those things where are you kind of like disappointed in his fame where you're like, oh, now maybe Brick will be like seen by a lot of people and it's not my little movie anymore.
No, absolutely not. I would love for more people to see it. I think they have because of the Knives Out movies. And I also think watching this back now, this is like obviously the precursor to those. Like a lot of the idea of like this is a who done it. You know, you can see the like that is like a very big interest for him starting this early.
I mean, you could even say that with Looper is has a lot of noir aspects to it too. Even though, first of all, I always forget Looper is his. Second of all, I didn't really like Looper first time I watched it.
Well, good
And
thing
the
you're
only
not
time I
doing
watched it,
Looper.
I've only seen it once. I should watch it again. I'd probably like it now.
These are just your thoughts free flowing out of your head.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, does The Last Jedi have like some sort of like mystery noir element to it? Probably not.
Uh, yeah, what happened with the direction of those movies that they just decided to let Rian Johnson do whatever he wants in a three-part trilogy in the second movie?
It is kind of crazy, but I don't think that they ever. I think they planned for him to take reign of the third one too. I don't think they ever thought J.J. Abrams was going to come back for the last one.
Well, then maybe too. I mean, the whole I don't know. I was a big fan of the first one of 7, Force Awakens. I think Last Jedi is a great movie. Just it's going in a completely different direction. And then the 9 is just trash with like
Just dog shit.
some
Yeah.
cool like set pieces than just overall like bad.
I was talking to someone over the weekend about The Last Jedi, and then someone else walked over to us and they were like, "Is that the Last Jedi slander I heard?" And we were like, "No, no, we actually both like The Last Jedi." And he was like, "Oh yeah, 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 me too. Good. I don't want like I didn't want anyone talking bad about that movie."
What a fucking
Um
loser.
and and, and you know what's funny about that movie is that I think to like non-hardcore Star Wars fans that are like so deep in the lore of Star Wars that they're like, No one, not everyone could be a Jedi. Not everyone has the Metachlorian account. Blah blah blah. Whatever,
Is that your
that
Aaron
bullshit.
impression?
Yeah, yeah. Is that I think on a emotional level, that movie hits a lot of high points that actually other Star Wars movies aren't able to do. And then that is kind of like good for a more general audience, and it kind of, you know what they say, and I'll leave it here, but they say like the minority is the loudest,
The vocal minority.
the vocal minority is the loudest, but that's the one that's most heard, but it's not really the majority of what people want. But
Did
yeah.
you just want to like you chose this movie? If you wanted to do The Last Jedi, we could have just done The Last Jedi.
No, okay,
If you
so
needed to get these takes out.
no. So the reason I chose this movie is because you actually introduced me to this movie. We were in Barnes and Nobles together. The Kino was there. It was Brick. You were like, "Oh, that's Ryan Johnson's first movie. It's really good." And I was like, "Oh, it looks really dark." And you're like, kind of a little bit." And you put a lot of intrigue on me with it, and I thought it was going to be a lot darker than what it actually was. It, and I explained this to you earlier. It's like it's more than what I thought it was going to be, but not exactly what I thought it was going to be. And we kind of talked to each other about this, about it being like a serious parody
Yeah.
of
Which
noir films. And I think that encompasses it pretty well.
so I was trying to think of this and it like is that's what this feels like, a very self-serious parody. And I was like, is there sort of another version of a parody movie that takes itself that seriously? And there are, but they're all very comedic. The ones that really come to mind are the Cornetto trilogy, Shaun of the Dead, Hot
Right.
Fuzz specifically.
Yep.
Those movies take themselves very seriously, but overall they're trying to be comedic. There are a couple funny moments in this movie, but it is very much just like taking itself super seriously, but it feels like a parody because it's doing something in an absurd way. And Ryan Johnson has this quote where he says, "We never wanted to like wink at the camera, even when the situations got to the point of absurdity," which I think a lot of those would be as the Pin's mom is like feeding all these muscle heads in in the top floor as like, the war is going on downstairs and then upstairs. Like, it's absurd, but the movie never is like, yeah, we know it's absurd. It's like, no, this is real life in this instant. And the reason I think that works, and this is something I've talked about before, is the like how important high school feels. And so he also has this quote where he says, "Brick isn't the way high school was, but it's maybe a little closer to the way that high school felt." In that, like when you're in it, it feels like the most important thing in the world, and it's not. Like it doesn't
Well, okay,
matter.
that is true. However, the situations that the people in Brick are dealing with are kind of the most important situations in their lives. You're talking about pregnancies, you're talking about murder, you're talking about
Yeah, but
relationships.
that's the point I'm making. It's making this hyper absurd situation for all these people because it's like that's how important high school felt.
Yeah, but if there was a murder in your high school, that would have felt pretty important too, despite it being high school.
I don't like you're like Neo dodging the point I'm making right now. Like,
No, no,
yeah,
no,
I
I get the
get it,
point that I
but
get the point that you're
that's
making.
why the movie's doing it.
Well, okay. No, I know the point you're making. I also was noticing a lot of moments in this movie that took a lot of stylized influences, I guess you would call them, from other movies we've seen. And then I've also noticed like a lot of movies that have come out recently that I feel like have taken stylized influences of this movie. One example that I'll make is that when Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character goes and meets the Pin for the first time and gets like stuffed down in the basement, he's in this perfectly symmetrical room where it's like you have even later on when he's in the van, there's like a lamp in the van that gives off this like certain lighting. But he's in this room that's like there's like eagle statues on either side of this ornate desk and these lamps perfectly like on either side symmetrical between this like
Yeah,
20-year-old gangster, right?
right.
And you're like, "Oh, this is a lot like he's positioned to be a lot like a Quentin Tarantino villain, right?"
But sort of looks like a Wes Anderson character.
But the whole thing looks Wes Anderson. But I'll even add an extra thing in here where I was getting a lot of Twin Peak, like Stephen Lynch,
David
David,
Lynch.
yeah, the singing comedian, David Lynch vibes from like Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks. Like I was getting a lot of that too.
So Ryan Johnson, this came out in 2005. He wrote this right out of high school, like 8 years earlier. It took him that long to get it made. Obviously, all those things influencing him makes a ton of sense. The Lucas Haas character is supposed to be dressed like Barnabas Collins from Dark Shadows. That's like the inspiration for his getup. But the fact that I guess he's supposed to be 26, a 26-year-old kid has a cane
Yeah.
that walks around with like just it's an affectation straight out of like a Wes Anderson movie. And a lot of times when I see him, I'm picturing Jason Schwartzman as that
That's funny.
character. So
That's funny.
one thing you brought up is before we started was the Emily character has like terrible judgment and like her choices of people, even to the point of the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character is not like the greatest guy.
No, exactly. Right.
And it's like she was attractive and could have probably had her choice of like a lot of guys,
But
right?
it's like that typical trope in high school where you have the attractive, semi-popular girl who has just the worst taste in boys. Well, it's like in the movie later on when you find out that um what's her face and Tug went out and you're like, I don't know, at least I was like, really?
Well,
Him?
and Dode,
And Dode. But also,
all in a 3-month period.
yeah,
She's like, you can't protect me. I want to go do drugs and have sex
right.
with drug dealers.
Yeah.
Low level, high level, muscle, whatever. Like this is what I want to do with my life in high school. It's like, yeah, she's an idiot.
Well, right before we started, I think we spoke when you were like 30 minutes away from finishing the movie, and I was just starting the movie, and you said, "Yeah, this movie really just starts," and it really does. This movie really just kind of puts you right in the middle of it, and
Yeah.
I really like that, and I appreciate that about the movie. It does at times feel like a student film. Very much so. I felt like I was watching dailies in my film classroom sometimes. And it's not a bad thing, like really good dailies, but it did feel like there's a lot of amateur moments that I was just like, it feels very visceral and raw.
I agree. I mean, it feels much like a movie that you would discover at like a film festival, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, the difference between a really good one and a really bad one is just like how well it's put together, how well it's edited. Is the dialogue really good? Like, does the story make sense? Is there actually a story? Because I've gone and watched film festival movies where like you watch the whole thing, and you're like, yeah, it was beautifully shot. What was the story? What
This
like
is
what were we getting at?
this is gonna be really surprising to you, but I actually have not attended a lot of film festivals.
Yeah.
But one of the ones that I have attended that will stick with me till the day I die was I was hanging out with my cousin in Paris,
Oh yeah, just
and
we do that sometimes.
she was like, "There's a independent film festival. It's like 4 hours long. There's like 14 short films. They're all in French. Do you want to go with me?" And of course, I said, "Yeah, yes, I do." So we went, sat in this like little theater, and watched all these back to back to back to back. And some of them were really good. Like some of them, I was like, okay, this is really awesome. And some of them, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think making shorts is like a very like it's a very hard task to make a good short.
For
You brought
sure.
up you brought up Lars and the Real Girl. Ryan Gosling and Joseph Gordon-Levitt had a very like similar starting trajectory, right? Where they did like a lot of independent stuff. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt had this career that's like almost impossible now, where he was like a leading man for like lower to mid-tier budget movies. So Brick, and then we did the Lookout a while back, right? That was 2 years later. He did a couple smaller things, Stop Loss, Uncertainty. He was in Miracle at St. Anna. 500 Days of Summer right after that. He's in the G.I. Joe movies, which is very funny. Just, I think, voice only, basically. Then he does this movie called Hesher, 50-50, Premium Rush, which is a fucking, like, a bike messenger movie.
Right. I've heard about that one. Yeah.
And then it sort of stops, like, he does Looper, and then Don John is sort of where it stops, where it is a movie where I think he might have even directed this. Yeah, he directed it, and it's about how like Scarlett Johansson really wants to like fuck him in part of the movie. It's pretty decent, but
But
like he
isn't he addicted to porn? Like, isn't he addicting to jacking
yes,
off? Yeah.
yeah, and he can't really fuck as well because of the porn addiction. But Ryan Gosling had that same thing. Lars and the Real Girl, Half Nelson, United States of Leland, which I'm looking at right now because I just bought those, like from like a boutique label or whatever. And it's just interesting, like that is once again like now you would just be making a bunch of those smaller movies maybe for like a streamer, right? And like they could go as unnoticed because there's just so much content now, and
Mm-hmm.
it is content too. It's not even like necessarily a full movie. So I remember watching this like this time that I was really like had a crush on Nora Zehetner. I don't know how you pronounce that. She was on this and then the show Everwood at the time. So like when we get to the end of the movie, I would have let her off. I would have
Yeah.
just I would have let it go. Like we're fine.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is, so on the before we start, there's a theory on Ryan Johnson's official forum that the brain only exists inside Brendan's mind. Ryan
Oh.
neither confirms or denies this, but says that's one of my favorite posts I've ever read on this forum, on his like Ryan Johnson forum.
I thought the brain was like a parody of like the like when cops go down to like the basement and of the like the
Yes,
techie guy, like Q from James Bond, right?
no, for sure. Yeah, that is what it is. I have seen this movie once every 5 to 10 years, so I always forget how it
So only
ends.
twice.
And I thought the brain was the bad guy. And one like there's a lot of key details that lead you to believe one of two things. Either he is just in his head or that he is like the brain behind it, right? Cuz like thinking of Unbreakable, there's always like the supervillain, very smart character that's in the background that the superhero knows the whole time but doesn't realize until the end that he's the bad guy.
Sure.
So at one point he's like, "Hey, watch Laura, make sure she doesn't leave." And then he calls him and he's like, "Oh yeah, she didn't leave all night and then she left at 6:30 in the morning." Well, obviously she left at some point cuz she stole the brick. So either the brain doesn't exist cuz he didn't see that, or he let her do it cuz he let her do it. Or it's just a plot
Yeah.
hole.
It's funny because I did get a sense of that. I was kind of making fun of the end of the movie in my head when I was watching it because after Laura walks away
Yeah.
and the brain kind of shows up behind Brendan, right?
Yeah.
Like give him that last piece of information. I was like, you know, what'd be funny is if like he walks because he's out of focus behind Brendan. I'm like, it would be funny if he walks like behind Brendan's head, but we never see him leave the other side.
It's also by design because he tells him like, "Oh, we shouldn't be seen together." So there really are no other characters that ever see them interact. So movie opens up with Joseph Gordon-Levitt seeing the dead girl, and then it goes 2 days earlier. Rian Johnson like talked about because like there was some like reporter who brought up how he thought, I guess in the original cut of this, like when it was at a festival, it didn't say 2 days earlier, and then he added it in, and he was sort of defending the decision. I think in a movie that is hyper confusing because of the dialogue, that's just like another thing that would throw people off of like, oh wait, we went back in time. Like, yeah, you'd be able to figure it out if you're really paying attention. But he also points out like if you didn't say 2 days earlier, you'd be like, is this 6 months earlier? How much earlier is this?
Not only that, but if you don't say 2 days earlier and Brendan's going around wondering where Emily is, it makes it seem like he killed her.
Or yeah, and like yes, because you do see the movie does focus on the bracelet, and then you see the bracelet, the hand that has the bracelet on it sticking the note in his locker, so you know that that dead girl is alive now.
Yeah.
But you could also say like, oh, was she ever dead? You know, I think it does.
Or you could even say who switched bracelets with someone else.
I just think like it would make it to where you for the whole time are like confused about that little bit, so you're not focusing on the movie. Whereas
Sure.
this, you know what you're looking at least a little
Sure.
bit, and it's a movie that's already trying to confuse you a little bit.
Well, at one point I did think that the twist of the movie was going to be that Brendan has like a double personality.
You know, when the movie ended, you were like, you called me and you're like, I knew it was her. I knew it was her. But as we're going through, you're going to tell me all your theories so that at least one of them had to be right.
No, 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 no. I'm just saying like there was a point in the movie where maybe you don't remember this because it's such a small, minute detail. But it's focusing on Brendan's feet after he just got the shit punched out of him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of stumbling over this curb. And the whole time the camera's aimed at his feet, right?
Yeah.
And they look clumsy and out of focus. And then they correct themselves and he starts walking with confidence in a straight line. And I thought for a second, I was like, oh, does he have kind of a double personality where it's like now we've switched into like this personality? And I'll be like, and it did make me think that would be a cool movie where you have one half of a personality trying to solve a murder that the other half of the personality did commit. And I was like, oh, but that's just Fight Club, isn't it?
Well, the feet thing that you were just referencing is a reference to something, but if I say it, then it might give it away. So I'm not going to say it.
Just say it. I've seen the movie. What would it give away?
Usual Suspects. Give away the
Oh,
Usual Suspects.
I know how The Usual Suspects ends.
All right. Well, good. Spoiler alert for those who don't.
I've seen
Uh,
The Usual Suspects, but I mean, but then again, I but that I mean that even just proves my point that maybe he does have some sort of personality disorder.
So he gets the note, goes to the phone booth. Cleanest phone booth I've ever seen. That back window looks like it's not even there. For a while, I was like, did they remove it? So, like, for the scene?
There's a
And
scene later on where he's running towards it. He has to go around to go into the
yeah.
entrance, and it's being shot through the phone booth window. And I was just like, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I don't know what they both look empty. Like he could just grab the phone from either side.
You know what this movie really also has a good feel of, too, is Hard Eight, PTA's first movie.
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel a
Because
lot,
the
but
noir feel, the music.
yeah, but in saying that, I also felt a lot of like David Lynch Twin Peaks from that movie too.
Yeah, you said that as well. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
So this line, I wrote it down. I like went and copied it because I was like, it does give away everything when you go back and watch it a second time, which I started the movie over. It says, look, I did what she said with the brick, obviously talking about Laura. I didn't know it was bad, but the pin's on it now for poor Frisco, and they're playing it all on me. and I assume they means it's just really Laura. Laura's sort of the
Tug and Laura.
mastermind. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then she's scared of the car, and we now at the end know that it's Laura riding shotgun because she flicks her cigarette out of Tug's car.
Yeah, we don't get that reveal until later on where they're like, Brendan is asking Tug for a cigarette, and he's like, I don't smoke.
And I mean, you talked about it before. So we have like what I think is a really funny high school equivalent of a sex scene in this, where like she starts making out with him, and then the scene cuts. It cuts back, and they're fully clothed. It doesn't look like they took their clothes off and put them back on. And then she's smoking a cigarette from like a heavy makeout session, like is the
Yeah.
equivalent of like the sex scene in this in a noir. So back to where we are. He goes talks to Brain. This is our first time meeting him and like getting all this information. I love the there's so many of them, but I love the conversations with Brain. They're just like really, really good stuff. And the using of like where are you eating lunch these days is like the big where have you been is like so smart.
Oh, like used as an alibi?
Well, no, just like the haven't seen you around, like you haven't been going like, and I guess in normal life it's like, oh, I haven't seen you at the gym, or I haven't seen you at the pub or
Oh, but
whatever.
everything is in this like high school bubble.
Yeah, so it's like the
Well,
only free time is lunch.
right. Well, that's also played by Brendan himself, where he's telling people, he's asking about Emily. He's like, if you see her, I'll be at my usual lunch spot.
She knows where to find me.
She knows where to find me, right? That's
Yeah.
like the equivalent of. There's also this great line later on where the Penn's mom is trying to find a drink for Brendan. Oh, you want some apple juice? I'll put it in a special cup for you. Or like we have, if you don't like that, we have orange juice. And he replies in the most like 60s cop in a bar. Where he's like,
Water's fine, ma'am.
water's fine, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So Halloween in January, he gets that postcard. I love that he has to call the number and it's a mom and he's like, I'm looking for, and the mom's like, oh, Laura. And then it sort of gets back into the noir slang between them. And when he gets there to her, he's like, why did Emily's name get me in this party? You have to like know something. And she's like, well, follow me. It meant something to you. So I was curious why you thought that would get you in the party, which is pretty good from her, but it also shows us that like he was on her from the beginning. And that is a question I have of like, when did he, I mean, I guess the most superficial look of this is like he realizes it with the cigarette,
Right.
and he sort of let her in his life thinking she was good, and then the cigarette gives it away. And he's like, oh fuck, I'm
Well,
an
we
idiot.
talked about this too, but Rian Johnson has a really good way of telling you, hey, this is the person at the beginning of the movie. This is the person that did it, right? This is the person that killed said person. And then throughout the entire movie, I'm going to do my best to convince you that that is not the person that killed that person. When in fact, at the end of the movie, I will just then tell you that that person is the one that killed that person. And the cigarette is, I feel like, for Laura's character, is like, that's the ending of the movie where it's like, that's the person that's behind everything. However, if you think about when he first went to the party and she's like, stay here, I'll be right back, he immediately follows her. He doesn't listen to her. He's immediately suspicious. And then later on, like about a scene or two later, she's just like, let me help you. And he's like, I can't trust you.
Yeah.
And that's also very telling.
So when she's talking to him, someone comes up to her and says, Tugger is here, which is the full name of Tug, I guess.
I didn't catch that.
She runs out there and is talking to him. And then we see like just a light up in the back of Tug's car. And it was in the back. And at this point, Emily's not dead. But the pin must have been in the back of the car, because to me, it makes sense that the pin, being the kingpin, always rides in the back. Like he is driven around. So it's like,
well, he also always has like a special light lighting him.
Yeah. I mean, straight out of Wes Anderson. So he leaves, and then the next day he talks to Kara again. Kara and Brain are just basically like ways for him to get information to go to different sources, right? Like they're good characters, but
if you think about this in like 60s noir terms, right? Brain is the guy in the basement of the police headquarters, and then she's like the hooker
Or the
that
waitress.
or
She's
the
like the
waitress.
waitress at the
Yeah,
bar that like
exactly.
yeah. So goes to Dode, the way he hits him. By the way, so there's this big thing that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is always in all of Rian Johnson's movies. Dode is also in all of his movies. Noah Sagan.
What
So
what was he in Knives Out?
he's Lakeith Stanfield's partner, the white guy, the white police guy.
Oh, no. I Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is who is he in Knives Out?
Yeah.
He's just like a voice on the TV or something. He's like
Oh,
he's
really?
does yeah, it's very like small, which is
Because
really
isn't he like a
weird.
storm? Isn't he like a stormtrooper in Last Jedi or something?
And then he's the dong in Glass Onion, which so
Oh,
by the way,
okay.
when watching Glass Onion again the other day, because I watched all three of the Knives Out movies, I was like, why did they not get a famous person to be this dude with long hair who's just also happens to be on the island for comedic relief? Because they're like, we're completely here by ourselves, and then Noah Segan walks by
Right.
and is like, "You won't even know I'm here, guys." And I was like, what? And now that I know, it's amazing. And then he is a bar owner in the third one in Wake Up Dead Man.
Isn't Joseph Gordon-Levitt like a main character in Wake Up Dead Man?
No,
No? Okay. Well,
he is
never
a baseball announcer on the TV.
mind. Oh.
I don't understand why Joseph Gordon-Levitt can't be getting parts like actual parts in these movies anymore. Like that
Me
part
either.
I find odd that he
Um,
just happens to always be busy.
well, he did like this thing, his like own production company called like Hit Record or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
how
It was
that's
like a
going.
collaborative thing. Okay, so back to just a real quick Knives Out thing. The lighting in Brick is very cool. It's like it is very indie. It's like very art house, where when you have Joseph Gordon-Levitt getting in and out of consciousness, you have like spotlights on certain characters, like flashes of spotlight. I haven't seen Wake Up Dead Man, but I have seen the trailer. You get that in Wake Up Dead Man. You get like those artistic lighting flashes. He's kind of coming back to like cool cinematography.
Well, he said that a lot of that was by necessity for how low budget this movie was, that he had to do things like that. Specifically for the way the punches are done, too.
Sure.
So, the interesting thing about the Dode is he tells Dode, tell M, I want to talk to her. I need to hear it from her that she doesn't want my help anymore. And you are thinking, like, what made her decide she didn't need her help anymore? And it's probably that Laura got to her and was like, you don't need his help. Don't go to him.
Oh, I thought it was the pregnancy.
I think she already knew she was pregnant, probably.
I guess because she said something.
That part's a little
3
left
months.
unsaid. So Dode goes to M, hugs her, and then he's the one that hands her the symbol that says midnight. Which means
Right.
he got that from Kara, who got that from Laura.
Yep.
And I don't even know if he knew what that all was for, right? But I guess at that point he's in love with her.
But who's meeting her there? Tug
Yes.
and Laura.
But it might just be Tug.
I guess
Laura
it
was
never
sort of
was
trying to keep her
exactly
distant.
said that Laura was there when she died, right?
Just
But
that
Laura knew.
she sent him there and knew what would happen.
She sealed it with convincing Laura to tell Tug that it was his baby.
M, yeah.
Right. Laura sent M there.
Correct.
If she didn't say it was your baby, you think he would have let her live?
Yes.
Okay.
Because he's just a fucking idiot, that guy. But I don't think he would have been necessarily upset enough about the cheating. Maybe just upset that like maybe he knows he's not ready to be a father. I don't know. So when M comes to meet him, this is a pretty like emotional scene. But he like gets up and runs to her, which is like desperate much, my guy. Play it cool.
Yeah, but okay, you say that, But one of the coolest parts of the there's two parts of this movie that I think are so cool by Brendan. One, he goes in for a hug and he swipes her notebook from her.
Yeah.
I was like, God damn it. Always on the job. this
So
this high schooler reminds me so much of like every like I'm in too deep cop.
yeah. No, I
It's
mean,
like
that's the point.
sure.
So, and she has some lines like, "Stop hating them because I wanted to be where they are, not be where you are." And he's like, "Who fed you that line?" And
Yeah.
it's probably Laura,
Yeah,
if we're to
yeah.
believe it actually was. And then she's like, at the end, she's like, "You have to promise me you won't torture yourself, and you have to let me go." Almost foreshadowing, which I guess we already know at this point, but like, she knows she might die, or she thinks she's probably gonna die.
Can you imagine being a high school girl who gets involved with a guy, has sex with him, gets pregnant, and then you're like, "Oh, I'm scared to tell him that it's my child because he might kill me." But I don't have bad taste in men.
And I'm gonna God, and I'm gonna tell the wrong person it's just child. And also but also she said she was gonna get rid of it. So I don't even Tug's motivation. I think it's just he just hit her because he can't regulate his emotions, like maybe steroid
So,
use or something. Like
s- yeah,
'cause he
yeah.
says, I probably did it because I thought it was mine. When he's having some introspection or later.
Was
So
he in the tunnel? You think? Was that ever
no,
established?
that was Dode who
That
hit
was
him.
Dode. Okay.
Yeah. So picks the notebook, finds the symbol, and talks to
Brain.
Brain about it. And he's like, "Oh, Dode wouldn't have come up with this. This is the upper crust, which is like all the rich kids."
Well, there's also that moment where he goes back and hides her body,
Yeah. Right after that, yeah.
which at the start of that, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, call the fucking cops, dude.
But he explains it at the end that like he knew the cops, or the bulls as they call them, would have easily figured out Tug, but he wanted to get the person behind it because he knows Tug's a fucking moron.
Well, not only that, but he set it up. Cue the second coolest thing Brendan did in this movie was when he organized that meeting between Pin and Tug. And then when he told Laura that he wasn't going to go, but he went anyways, right?
Yeah.
The moment where he kicks the gun back into the dark room because he knew exactly what was going to happen when he did that.
It almost in the moment, it almost felt like he was giving the Pin a chance to live, I guess.
Oh no, I thought that was just clear shot, like go kill each other.
Yeah, but also, I mean, what ended up happening is the Tug killed the Pin with his bare hands and then tried to shoot his way out, and the cops killed him.
Well,
So I don't
maybe
think he could
he
have planned that.
he knew that Tug was quite a hothead, so maybe he could have planned that.
So this next part, he goes through with Brain. He's like all these words that he doesn't understand. And this part, he's like, "What does brick mean?" He's like, "Oh, brick's not anything. A brock is heroin or whatever drug of choice." But then they use the term brick throughout because it's like it is a brick of the drugs. Like other people use that term, but they're like, "Oh, we don't call it that."
When Brendan went into the basement and he sees the window shining into the mirror and he's like repositioning the mirror to light certain parts of the basement, that remind you of Weapons?
Barbarian.
Or yeah, Barbarian.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I thought about.
Yeah. And then that's
So
where he finds the said titular brick.
it is the 10th brick?
Ninth.
No, I don't think that was the bad one. It
No,
was
the ninth is the one that went missing.
but the 10th is that one. I don't know if the ninth ever made it back. The 10th was the
Oh,
one on the ground.
no.
Apparently, Rian Johnson, one of the people that worked on the film, was just like, that's not how you would hold drugs. You wouldn't just have it sitting on a fucking bag in the middle of the basement. And she was like aghast by this, and he's like, whatever, that's how we're doing it. So after this, he fights Brad Bramish. That character is kind of a fuck. I mean, I guess he's just a drug addict, right? All he talks about how he doesn't get enough playing time, and that if you really want to win, you got to put Brad Bramish in the game.
there's multiple times where Joseph Gordon-Levitt fights people by only going for their feet, calves, and ankles, and I find it hilarious.
I did wonder if it's a little bit of a prejudicial thought that I was like, is Brad Bramish like the running back and then he's taking out his legs? But I mean, Brad Bramish, he could have been the quarterback too. I don't need to pigeonhole what his position was.
Even the guy who like was like chasing him down with the knife, he does
That
this
guy.
super cool thing where he takes off his shoes, throws them a little bit to like mimic like he's still running, comes through, totally like trips him into the pole.
It's one of the funniest scenes, that chase scene. To just at the end just be like, Brad Bramish sent this guy to kill him or to maim him or what? Like what was the end game on that? We don't know.
Well, you also mentioned like how funny every time Joseph Gordon-Levitt gets punched repeatedly, the way he just kind of like bounces back up from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you already talked about Laura saying she wants to help, and he's like, "I can't trust you." He's like, "Even I would have to have one eye on both your hands, and I can't spare it." So then he gets knocked out by Tugger, goes into Richard Roundtree's office. Shaft is the assistant vice principal, which is so funny that they keep making sure that they know that there is an assistant vice principal. He's not even
Was
the P.
I told my wife about this. I was like, "Yeah, Shaft is in this movie," and she had no idea who Shaft was.
The stuff with Richard Roundtree is great. And he's like, I gave Jer to you to watch him eaten, not to get you fed.
Yeah.
One of the best lines in the movie. And then he's like, and then him coming back to him, you're only valuable to me if I need something from you. Do I need something from you? He's like, maybe. And he's like, well, do you need something from me?
This whole thing reminded me like scenes out of The Wire.
Yeah. He's like, I need you off my back. And he's like, the best I can do is if you don't get caught, I'll make sure you don't get caught. But like, if your fingerprints are on anything, you're done. Like, I can't do anything else for you.
Yeah. The only thing I was missing was like, being like, "I need you to deliver to the DA." And it's like, you can't
You tried to do that. I forget what her name is. That you're doing the Always Sunny,
Yeah.
doing the impression of, yeah.
Yeah. But the terminology that could only be used in this scene are like high school terminologies.
Yeah.
So it's like, but the word suspended, like if you're a cop, you can get suspended, but if you're a student, you can also get suspended. So he's like, I could still suspend you. And
Write you up. Write you up was also a cop term.
yeah, that's true too. But he just couldn't be like, "Give me your badge and gun."
So he's going to go home, but he stops by the mall. He sees Tug's car and he picks up the huge brick to throw at it.
Is that the titular brick?
Maybe. And one of the funniest moments is when he is about to throw it at the car and then Tug is walking up and he starts walking up faster. And then Tug hits him once, is like, I got places to be. Keeps hitting him because he keeps getting back up. Throws something at him and you think, oh, he's gone. And then he comes back and barely comes by him. And there's a few moments in this where Tug sort of like has this begrudging respect for Brendan, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where he's like, I want to see the pin. He's like, I guess you do. And then the other one is when he's like, the pin's not telling me things. It makes me nervous. And he's like, yeah, that's understandable. So this scene, he's like, all right, I'll take you to the pin. To him just like pushing the trunk open to see the address. And then when they go inside, the trunk opens up, which is just to set up the fact that the trunk opens up at the end as Joseph Gordon walks out as the cops are coming, and you see that he planted the body in the trunk. That's the whole reason that trunk doesn't work.
Because he broke the trunk.
I guess he broke it, yeah, but also you then know like, oh, it's broken from here on out.
Yeah. No, it's very smart. It's very smart. When he says, "Hey, I know exactly where I am, 1250, Bonneview Drive," or whatever he says, he's like letting them know, like, I can end you. And that's what gets him like the shit beat out of him even more.
And then he does this thing where he says, why don't you have Laura come in here? He's like, that would have been a neat trick. And then she is there. And he knew she was there.
Yeah.
And that's when he like knows she's the pin's girl. Or at least that's the way her whole relationship with the pin and Tug is interesting because when they're like, oh, it's war. and she's the one that brought him to Tug. But then he goes to the pin, and she's there with the pin, and then she drives him back to Tug. Like she's allowed to
Oh,
freely go.
yeah. But I mean, that sets up one of the coolest parts at the end where you have this entire like sound design happening above them where you hear the brick is missing, you hear broken furniture, you hear foot stomping, you hear fighting. Eventually, you hear falling down the stairs and a gunshot, which leads to the guy walking out, you know, dead, saying the brick is missing. But because you know that Laura can move freely in and out of the place, the first like inclination that Joseph Gordon-Levitt has is, oh, Laura is the only one that could have
Yeah,
taken the brick, gotten out of there without being seen.
correct. So we've met the pin, then cuts to the pin's mom making breakfast, which is the funniest part of the movie. And then I love he's like, why would I be hiring you exactly? So I can be specific on the invoice. Such a great line. Lucas Haas is very good in this movie.
But it's fucking dialogue like this that you would never catch 17-year-olds saying to each other.
The absurdity is the point.
I know, but
I'm just gonna keep saying it to you.
I think if it was never pointed out to me, I would have just like watched the movie and then you would have mentioned it and then I would have said like, "Oh yeah, that was absurd." But the fact that it was pointed out to me before I went into watching this movie, it was the only it was like I hyper focused on it.
That's the tism getting to you.
Uh,
So then after this, Laura's like, "Do you trust me now?" And she explains like, "Oh, Emily owes the pin too much for drugs," and he's like, that doesn't sound like her." And then, "Why are you helping me? I see you, I always have, and I see the way you cared for Emily, and no one would care for me like that." And then he goes, "Wow, you are dangerous," which I think is a line from the Maltese Falcon.
okay.
So, but it's like this is her trying to control him. And at this point, I was like, oh, this movie reminds me of another sort of high school noir type movie, her character specifically, which is Sarah Michelle Gellar in Cruel Intentions.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. But we as the audience know that Sarah Michelle Gellar is
Bad.
bad and has malicious intent behind everything she does. We are uncertain about the character of Laura. And I think that's what like kind of when he says like she says, "Oh, this is what Emily does. This is how much Emily owes," and he goes, "That's not like Emily. That doesn't make sense." We're like, at least I was. Shut up, Brendan. She's feeding you information. You obviously didn't know Emily as well as you thought you did, right?
But he did.
But he did. And in fact, we as the audience are supposed to trust Laura more than Brendan right now.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because then at the end, and I think you said this kind of facetiously, so did I. It was like when she was still lying through her teeth, being the one to not take the brick, being the one not to plan everything and everything like that, and she's like, "I didn't do it. That's not how it happened." We were like, we would have just believed her.
I would have knew she was lying, and I would have believed her. So he gets the note to meet at 12:30 at the same cross section that he did from Emily. He compares it with the other note. Emily's is like obviously written by a girl. The other one is nice handwriting, but maybe not as female coded,
Well,
whatever
that's
that means
Dode.
in 2025.
That's
But it
Dode.
was Dode, but it also looked like too good of handwriting for Dode. After getting this note, he gets chased by a guy with a knife. Then the pin pulls up, takes him in a van, and gives him his money, his weekly money, and then just goes in a circle in the van and drops him back off, which is also a funny, like his setup in the back of this van is hilarious. And then he's like, shit, I gotta make it to this call. And he runs, and this is where Dode's like, I saw you hide the body. And he's like, what are you going to do? Send a hash head to get me? He's like, no, I'm just going to squawk. And that's it. And then we get the beach. The beach pin scene is funny. At the end, the whole point of it is just to be like, you don't work for Tug, you work for me. I didn't say Tug to hit you. I'm a little worried about Tug getting a mind of his own and not listening to me anymore. And then at the end, he's like, do you like the Hobbit books? They're really well written.
They're really well written. They really put you in the environment. You know what's funny? And I think this is kind of a little bit where I don't want to say the writing is lazy, but it's like an obvious budget restraint that this movie has is that he has a conversation with Dode on the phone. He meets Dode in person one on one, and then they have this like then he meets Dode again, but with the pin and tug under the in the tunnel.
Right.
And you have these like three scenes that are very like heavy with Dode, but I think you could have just done one of them, and you could have done it way before they all met. And it just felt like you could have had all these three conversations in one conversation. You didn't need to break it apart this much.
Well, I think so. In the first conversation, I think you could have combined the first and the second on the field, right? The whole him telling Laura, make sure Doe doesn't get past me. And then the whole point of that second conversation is to Doe to let him know that Em was pregnant and that Doe thought it was his. That's the whole reason that conversation happens, is to
It
let him
just
know
seemed
that.
messy. It just seemed
Well,
messy for
that
the
could have happened
movie.
on the phone, right? Like it didn't need to
Yeah.
happen. But the third one is necessary because you think this whole time, oh, he's about to tell the pin and Tug that Joseph Gordon-Levitt killed M, but then Tug is like, I know that I did it. The real interesting part is, why couldn't Tug just say, I killed Emily because she said she was having my kid. I lost it. I killed her. Why would the pin have cared that much?
That's a good question. Also, I like the setup where because you think Dode is going to give off Brendan's name to the pin this whole time,
Yeah.
you have Tug in the background, what, like grinding grass in his hands?
He's ripping her apart. He's real strong.
But you think it's because he's being worked up to start beating the crap out of Brendan as soon as Brendan's name leaves Dode's lips, right?
Yeah.
But it's a misdirect because when in fact all Tug at this moment is worried about, fuck Brendan. Who's Brendan? No one cares about Brendan. The only thing Tug is worried about is Dode saying his name.
And there is evidence of that, right? So Brendan's like, oh, I got to push things a little further. So he goes to pins. He gets caught by Tug. And then Tug's like, yeah, there was 10 bricks. We got rid of 8. One came back. He's like, we will catch the rat. It just takes time, which means Tug doesn't even know that Emily or Laura did this. They still don't know who brought back the bad brick. And then he's like, do you know Emily? He's like, no, I don't know her. And the reason he lies about it is because he killed her. Because that's just his dumb jock brain, muscle brain of like, no, I don't know her. No, I'd like, and when it's 2 seconds later, Pin's like, yeah, that was Tug's girl.
I
Then
was
we're
so
gonna find out.
confused by that. I was so confused by that, but I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and then so he tells Laura to watch out for Dode, and he's like spitting up blood at this point. And I was like, what happened to him? And it's like, oh, it's when Tug kicked the shit out of him the first time. He still like hasn't recovered from Tug beating him almost to death and choking him.
You swallow too much blood.
So then we get to the tunnel. Tug shoots Dode in the head. There's this smoke that came out of the back of Dode's head, and I was like, oh, that is so cool. But it was actually a mistake. It was just compressed air from the device to shoot out the blood. So the blood shot out, and then the air shot out a half a second later.
Oh, I thought it was so cool though.
It was cool. Who cares that it's a mistake? It was so fucking cool.
Were the birds a paid actor too? Like
They were, and apparently they fucked up, so they had to like cut it together to make it look like they wouldn't do it right. So they had to.
Oh, really?
They had to cut it together, like to splice the negatives together or whatever. I don't know.
Crazy.
So he wakes up at Tug's, and Tug's like, yeah, I still think about it being mine. Maybe I did it because I thought it was true. Everyone's laying low, and he's like, you're not allowed to leave. Then he immediately leaves, tells Brain to get a car, and then goes to Pin and says, you need to avoid war. And then Laura's there. And so she takes him back to Tug, and then he goes to bed there where she makes her move on him. And it's like, that would have just won me over right there. Like I would have stopped the investigation. And then she says, don't go tonight. I'm scared. And it's because she knows what she has set into motion, what she's going to make happen, that they're going to all kill each other. Which, if it worked out and there was no Brendan, would have just completely freed her up.
Yeah.
It would have been like a master
But
stroke.
instead of trying to kill Brendan, she's like, I can seduce this boy.
I mean, she did. It worked.
Until when he woke up after sleeping with her
Saw the
and
cigarette.
saw the brand of cigarettes.
Well, and there was a thing earlier too where he's like, "Oh, to Kara, oh, and now I know Dode's brand of cigarettes," and she was like, "No, you don't." And he's like, "I do now." Like, "Oh, there it is, right there. You know, like I can buy your answer. I know that those are the right ones." So goes to Tugs to Pins, and they're like, "I have a couple things," and one of the things that like really brings you back to this is a high school movie. He's like, "You owe me 6 C's." Which is I think C notes. You owe me $600. Like this isn't big money, right? Like it's not six
Yeah,
grand or
yeah.
60,000. And then he's like, "Oh, and you have to dose this brick." And the whole time Brendan's just looking at the clock like, "Fuck me." He's like, "All right, I'll dose it because we got
Oh,
to
hold
get
on, hold
this
on. Okay,
moving."
this is the part where I was a little confused at. Was what was the time limit that he was? Why was he in a hurry?
He told Brain to call the cops at 4:15 and tell them to check Tug's car at Pin's house.
Okay.
So
Well,
he's like, "I have to get out of here." And there was no way for him to, this is pre it's not pre cell phones, but it's pre everyone having a cell phone. So he's like, "There's no way for me to fix this."
there was no way for him to know that Laura was going to steal the brick, so he was actually going to be. He was okay with it.
He was gonna just try heroin to get things moving. Yeah, he's like, "Fuck it."
It it is so much like a fucking dirty cop movie. Yeah. Okay.
No, I mean it is. It's almost like a Batman movie, right? Like it's
It
he's
is almost like a Batman movie.
with the brain being like the villain
Lucius
that he
Fox or
thinks is his
something.
friend. Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. Which you never see. Yeah, that guy never leaves the house.
But then Joseph Gordon-Levitt does get cast in a Batman movie later on in his life.
As Robin.
Yeah, well, loosely Robin. But then that makes me think like Rian Johnson could actually make a pretty good Batman movie.
Rian Johnson could make a pretty good any movie. Unless you ask Aaron if he could make a Star Wars movie. So I will say Penn getting the shit kicked out of him, especially because he has a cane, was like kind of sad as he's like, "Please help me. Please stop him."
Yeah, but honestly though, fuck that guy.
No, he sucked too. Although he did, in retrospect, yes, he's a drug dealer, but he did kind of suck the least. Like they're keeping this Emily thing from him, presumably because he doesn't want people to die.
I guess.
Yeah, I think he is. I was like earlier, like, oh, maybe Kara is like the best person that's not Joseph Gordon-Levitt or the brain. But it's like, no, she kind of sucks too. Dode, I guess, is a pretty good guy, which Emily actually says. But yeah, the pin, I mean, it's really Tug sucks and Laura sucks. Although Laura's great. Don't talk bad about her. So he meets Laura on the field. This is after kicking the gun, walks outside. The trunk opens. You see Emily's body, the bracelets, closes it up. And she's like, he's like, "I didn't go. What happened?" And she tells him, which he doesn't know, but he, obviously he did go. And then she's like, "You did this because you loved her. And now it's over." And he's like, "No." And then she's like, "Tell it to me." He's like, they both know she's been caught. She's like, "Tell it to me." And then, just lays it all out. And he's like, "Tell me it's not true. Tell me it's not true. It's not true. It's not true." He's like, "Well,
I
then
think
they're not going to find that brick in your locker."
I think that's a great part, right? That's like for us, the audience, cutting to the vice principal going and opening her locker and actually finding the brick. The brick falls and crumbles on the ground. I think that's really cathartic to us as the audience, even though everything we're getting from Laura, she's playing very innocent.
Well, because then she says, "Please don't do it." And he's like, "It's done." And
She
then,
goes, "What do you mean it's done?"
no, well, she knows. And then she just changes, right? And she's like, "Well, you got 9 out of 10 right. But the part you missed is that, she hated the father because she was 3 months pregnant. Whose kid that makes it? Or did you always know?" And then in his ear, "Motherfucker." But we don't hear
Yeah.
fucker.
No, we don't hear fucker. But when Brain asked him, what did she whisper in your ear? See, this is another thing where he, like, if Brain was inside his brain, wouldn't Brain know what she whispered in his ear?
Yeah, that's why the theory doesn't necessarily completely hold water.
But he's like, what she whispered, and he says, what did he say?
a dirty
Yeah,
word.
a
He's
dirty
like, fine,
word.
keep your secrets.
Yeah, man. She's nasty. That was a good that
Yeah,
was a
she
good
is.
reveal of
She is a nasty girl. That
no,
one, yeah.
stop. That was a really good reveal of character. Like one last twist of the knife in his wound, but like that's all she had left. Like she's played every card and she's caught, and that's all she had left.
So she's like, I'll burn this fucking place down then.
Hit to him emotionally, yeah. You know though, I really like this movie. This movie was really cool. I I I want to watch it. Like I want to rewatch it maybe a year from now or a year and a half from now and kind of take in the fact that I know everything. I feel like this movie is different once you know it. Like in a good way, once you know what everyone's role is. I think this movie plays out differently and you're almost like watching a new movie.
And the other thing too is like everyone is so good in their roles. Like I was saying, Megan Good is in like a little bit of a smaller role, but her acting is so good in this movie, like as that character.
Megan Good is Kara.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but even like Emily de Ravine, who I know from Lost, right?
I know you had
Like
to say that.
she, and you mentioned this earlier, she's like the least important character in this whole movie, but she's like the catalyst of like what gets everything going.
She's the titular brick though.
She's the titular brick, but she has like one speaking scene.
Well, yeah, one and then on the phone. Yeah, not a lot.
But like she's good, Lucas Haas is good, like everyone's
Nora's great. Always will
Richard
be.
Roundtree, amazing.
Obviously. May he rest in peace. Brendan's hair, personality, and distinctive walk are partially inspired by Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop.
Oh my god, yes. Have you ever seen Cowboy Bebop?
I have not. I
Have
heard
you
the
ever
Netflix live action's amazing though, right?
Stop. Have you ever watched an anime from like start to finish? No. If there was one anime that you could, and it's short, it's not a very long anime. But if there was one anime you could do from start to finish for you, you'd love Cowboy Bebop.
I did watch the movie though, that we did.
Yeah, but that's a movie. I'm saying you need to watch
Tokyo.
a
What
series.
movie was that again?
Akira.
The horn signal Brendan instructs Laura to give him, long, short, is the same as the doorbell from the Maltese Falcon. Also, Now You're Dangerous, taken from the film as well. Rian Johnson credits the novels of Dashiell Hammett, which he wrote the Maltese Falcon, and the Coen brothers' Miller's Crossing as inspiration.
I didn't really get a lot of Miller's Crossing.
I can see it. You know, they were trying to make this movie for forever. James McAvoy came in to read for Brendan, and then he did Children of Dune and became a huge star, and they're like, fuck, we're not going to be able to get him anymore. And then he found Joseph Gordon-Levitt and was like, I'm not making this movie without him.
Also, I love that he's not scared to like have his main character getting continuously beat the shit out of throughout the movie.
Yeah, I think that's from those books. And you know, the way they talk, right? That neo-noir way, at least it's not like, see, I gotta go talk to Kara. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it could have made it very obnoxious, and they didn't go for that. You know, it is the language they use is confusing when you're like, what the fuck are the bulls? Who are we talking about?
Not only that, but they're talking in metaphors, like especially the Pin, Lucas Haas's character, is talking metaphorically half the time just to explain a certain point.
Yeah, well, I mean, he is the Jason Schwartzman of this all. So,
well,
yeah, I mean, I love this movie, and yeah, I'm glad that I forced you to watch it, even though it was your choice. And this is like a big start of the Joseph Gordon-Levitt run that I really enjoy. So, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched Brick.